Oh, here we go. Okay. Right. Well, welcome everyone to our EDN Budstick Blitz information session. I'm Jackie Mitchell, and I'm the Urban Biosecurity Coordinator that manages this program. So thank you everyone for coming. So a little bit about us or Citrus Watch. We are a national biosecurity program coordinated through several entities and funded by Hort Innovation, Plant Health Australia, Citrus Australia, Northern Territory Government, and Caesar Australia. So we all work together to create this project and this program to basically encourage more public awareness about citrus diseases that threaten our citrus industry. So we operate this with industry, with orchards, citrus growers around Australia, as well as in urban areas. So we work with councils, community groups, as well as you, our participants, to do our surveillance trapping and gather that information. So a little bit of background on this program. So we are primarily a biosecurity program, which is something that is guarding our food security of our country. As an island nation, we are pretty lucky in that we don't have land borders to protect. So anything that comes in here has to come in across a great big ocean, which gives us a certain level of protection. So our most likely points of entry for any biosecurity threats tends to be things that are blown over across the strait through wind. That can be things like weather events, cyclones, island hopping. So we're very close to our neighbours over in Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, and to a lesser extent New Zealand as well, although they themselves are also fairly well protected by their island status. And then of course there's our traditional points of entry, things like of human movement. So things like through airports, through import export, through shipping, and travel, cruise ships and things like that as well. So why does it matter? Why do we want to detect these pests and diseases before they get here? In short, it's more cost effective. So it's a lot cheaper to keep something out and to catch it before it becomes a problem than the cost of treating, eradicating, containing, and managing these pests and diseases. So there's a lot of different critters around the world. Not all of them are here or adapted here. So being an island, our ecosystem has adapted fairly well to keep on top of itself. That's with things like predatory insects, adapted to immunity to diseases and infection. So when you get new things come in, we don't have a evolved ecosystem prepared to manage those populations. So sometimes you get an explosion, and that can cause a lot of damage and upset the balance of things. For our food production in particular, that can have devastating impacts on our economy, as well as our food security. So whether or not we have availability of the foods that we like to enjoy. So here's a little bit of an example of some of the citrus threats that we have faced recently. So there's on this big leaf here, you can see what look like really tiny little insects there. That is the Asian citrus psyllid. That is actually the insect that we are trapping for. So as part of this project, so that is what we're looking for on those sticky traps that we're getting everyone to put out. So they're not currently located in Australia. We do occasionally intercept them at the ports, and through border control. They've been very effective at capturing those before they become an incursion. Another one that may have popped up in everyone's spheres in the last few years was citrus canker. We had an incursion in the Northern Territory a few years ago. That was captured early and controlled and declared eradicated. But it is something that pops up in quarantine quite regularly as well, just through people trying to bring in cuttings or fruit from countries that already have these pests and diseases, and whether through knowingly bringing it in or just through ignorance. Oh, is the screen not sharing? I'm very sorry about that. Maybe I should start that again. Thanks for pointing that out, Emily. Yeah, where was I? So maybe I'll go back to some of those slides just so that they can be seen. There we go. So I'll just quickly scroll through those slides again so that you can see them. That's our acknowledgements and just what I was talking about earlier. Okay, and back to the screen that I was on. Okay, so yeah, so these are some of the things that we've had to deal with, and our various levels of biosecurity and quarantine work very hard to capture these things as they come in. Inevitably, though, sometimes things slip through the net, whether that's through a natural occurrence or someone has smuggled things in that they shouldn't have. But we do unfortunately have occurrences where things get through. And so the idea behind this program, the Early Detection Network and Citrus Watch, is to raise the awareness so that people know what to look for. So when they see it, they go, "Oh, that's not quite right," and then they're aware enough to report that it's something important enough to report to biosecurity. And then by hanging all these traps in our detector network, we can also put out, I guess, a bit of a safety net, so we can detect it while it's in, say, someone's backyard before we find it in an orchard, which will have much more devastating impacts in terms of a quarantine response. A little bit more detail as well on why we're trying to keep these out. So particularly for the Budstick Blitz, which is something that we've only been doing once a year. Part of that is we're trying to detect any occurrences of a disease called Xylella, and more commonly known as citrus variegated chlorosis. That's this little dude here. And he's spread by a little bug called the glassy winged sharpshooter. That's this little guy up here. And of course, we've also got the Asian citrus psyllid, which is what we're sticky trapping for. So the Budstick Blitz, we're doing a molecular analysis, so that actually we physically analyze the material that's collected, so the samples that are taken, to DNA test whether or not these diseases are present. So citrus graining, or Huang Longbing, is the disease that is carried by the Asian citrus psyllid. So we sticky trap for the insect, and we do the bud stick testing for the actual disease itself. So what is HLB? Huang Longbing disease, or citrus graining, It's a bacteria. It affects the phloem, and which then causes the root system to die back, which then affects the ability of the plant to take up nutrients. Trees get stressed, and then you start to see these a lowering of the yield and also a lowering of the quality of the fruit and the general health of the tree. So you can sort of see in the pictures here just some of what a symptomatic tree could actually look like, and just here some of the extremes that growers have to go to in other countries that have this disease. Oh, my slide skipped over. We'll go back to that. There we go. So yeah, so just some of that netting that they have to do just to keep these psyllids out of their trees. So for example, so some of you may have noticed that the cost of things like orange juice has increased dramatically in the last couple of years. And the reason for that is that we often had cheaper imports coming in from places like the United States and South America, Brazil in particular. They've been impacted by this disease quite badly in the last 15 to 20 years, which has brought their production from 175 million boxes right down to about 58. So this is a fairly huge impact on their industry as a whole, and then that has carryover effects in terms of the global export of citrus. And as one of the few countries that actually don't have ACP and HLB, we want to keep our industry clear of this to prevent similar losses on our side. So here's some more pictures just of what you might see in an affected tree. So again, some of these pictures, some of the leaf damage that you'll see looks very similar to nutrient deficiency. You get that sort of that variegated chlorosis sort of happening, discoloration, and part of the naming of HLB, Huanglongbing, translates to yellow dragon disease. Oh, how do I stop this? Keeps flicking my slides over. There we go. One of the other effects is also on the fruit. The fruit don't green up very well, hence the greening disease. And you get this sort of deformation in the inside of the fruit as well. So you don't get nice even segments. You just get sort of that weird sort of deformation happening there. And this is a little example on what xylella also looks like. So this is a bacterium that lives in the xylem as opposed to the phloem. Again, reduces water intake and resembles very closely to a nutrient deficiency, although this one in particular looks more like a spotty kind of lesion sort of happening. And then you'll eventually get dieback in the canopy as well. So that leads me into the Early Detector Network, which is what we're here for. So if you haven't done a season of trapping with us before, this one is just a really quick overview of the what you'll get in a kit. So you'll have your sticky panel, which is our main sort of feature. That's what obviously the bugs will stick to. You've got your trap cage. Now this is primarily to help protect against any bycatch. So sticky traps are known for catching things like geckos and birds and other predatory critters that are trying to go for the bugs that are stuck to the trap. So we try and mitigate that by putting the protective cage around it. Now, most of our previous trappers will have received the green trap that's in this picture here. We've been sending out some new ones. So for some of the people that have previously been only sent the panels because you've kept your cages, you will have received a yellow cage, which is much larger. And this is partly to accommodate the size of our actual panels. So these green cages are actually smaller than the size of the panels that we get in. And so we normally cut them down to fit. So with these larger yellow cages, it just saves us having to cut them down. Yeah. On your sticky panel, you'll find a barcode. That's our trap ID. And then you'll also have our lure, which is designed to attract any citrus psyllids that may be present. There'll also be a sheep protector in there for putting your trap in once it's been put out for 2 weeks. And that just protects the sticky panel for postage so that it doesn't get stuck to the envelope and then sort of ruins the sample. There'll also be a couple of twist ties in there to help sort of assemble the trap and put everything together to hang in the tree. There's also a page of instructions in more detail, as well as some basic instructions on the back of the envelope. If anyone has any issues with assembling that trap, we do have a video that sort of goes into that in quite a bit of detail on our YouTube, which I've shared the link to in the chat box here. There is also a QR code at the bottom of the instructions that will take you directly to it. Now, what happens after this sort of gives you a little bit of a timeline on what actually happens with the traps once you receive the kit. Hang it out, put the My Pest Guide reporter in, and again, if anyone has any issues with generating that report, my email and phone number are on the instructions. You're more than welcome to contact me, and I'm happy to walk you through the process. Once that trap's been hung out for 2 weeks, we get you to mail that back to the one of our entomologists. So depending on which state you're in, if you're in WA, your envelope will be addressed to DPIRD's laboratory. If you're in South Australia, New South Wales, or Victoria, it'll go to one of our entomologists, Rob Wepler. And if you're in Queensland, it'll go to Luke Halling. So all of that you should have received an appropriately addressed envelope in your kit. And then once it goes to our entomologists, they'll analyze it and then send us the results. Hopefully they won't find anything, in which case they'll send us a report stating as such. If they find something that looks a little bit suspicious, they'll forward it onto the laboratory, which will then more closely analyze the trap. And then we'll receive the reports back. And all of that information gets uploaded into a database. And that can then feed into other biosecurity programs. This can also affect things like market access. So where other countries are wanting to import some of our produce, they want to know that we still have a disease-free status, and part of this data actually contributes to that for us to be able to declare that we are disease-free. And we are not at risk of importing any of these insects to their countries as well. So just go into the bud stick sampling now. Now, if you are located in WA, South Australia, New South Wales, or Victoria, you may receive one of these kits as part of your package. We haven't sent any into Queensland on this round. But that will probably change next year. Bud stick sampling is something that we don't do every season. This feeds into a lot of our some of our Xylella monitoring as well as HLB. So for those of you that haven't done anything to do with bud sticks before, It's just a bit of a rundown on what a budstick actually is, and that's the first 10 centimeters of the branch. So you've got your brand new growth right at the top where you've got all your little leaves coming out, and then sort of going back into your slightly woodier growth further back into the branch. Now, what are budsticks normally used for? Usually for grafting onto new trees. So most citrus will generally be grafted onto a rootstock, and your budstick is the variety of citrus that you're trying to grow, with the rootstock being a more healthier variety of citrus that is a lot more disease resistant and a lot more vigorous, to help provide a stable and healthy base for the variety of fruits that we're trying to grow. So we only need the first 10 centimeters. And so I need to click this to go to the next slide. It keeps popping up many things. Yes, thorns. Some of our citrus varieties can be very thorny. So be mindful of that as well. And just be a bit careful. If the variety that you're taking a sample of is particularly thorny or has some very long and sharp thorns, you can cut those off before putting them in the envelope as well, just to make it safer. And here we go. So in terms of where to take the budstick sample from, we ask that you take it from each quadrant of the tree. So if you were to divide your tree canopy into 4 parts, if you we would like a budstick sample from each of those quarters. So not too many. I mean, if you want to take more, and you can fit it in the bag, that's not an issue either. Once you've taken the sample, they can go into the little envelope that's been provided, the one that's got the citrus budstick sampling kit label on it. There is a small sticker on the back as well with some brief instructions. Again, we ask that a My Pest Guide report is made, just with the barcode, which there isn't one in the picture, but there'll be a barcode just on the front of that envelope. So that'll be your sample ID. We do ask that the sample is taken from a single tree. If you have multiple citrus trees, we prefer that the samples are only taken from the one tree. And the reason for that is just so that we know exactly where it's come from. If in the unfortunate event that we find something, then we are able to trace it back to that tree, that individual tree. If you can add the date, address, and what type of tree you've taken the sample from, and just write that on the front of the envelope as well, that'd be really handy. And then you can pop it into the express post bag that will have come with that budstick sampling kit, and that needs to get posted either immediately or the sample put in the fridge until it's ready to be taken to the post. And the reason for that is just to reduce the chances of the sample degrading before it gets to the lab. So the laboratory is located in New South Wales. So this is where it gets sent to at the EMAI laboratory, or the Elizabeth MacArthur Agricultural Institute. These guys do a great job, and they will be doing the DNA testing. Now again, hopefully they will send us a result that the samples are negative for Xylella and HLB, and we want to keep it that way. So that sort of brings me to the end of the information for this talk. Here's a couple of resources online as well, just for further reading. So there's our main website, Citrus Watch, which you'll find some of our videos and instructions on. You can also contact us through biosecurity@citrusaustralia.com.au. And we've got some information up on our Instagram account as well, which you're more than welcome to share. In fact, we encourage you to share it. And some of our videos and webinars that we've done so far are also up on our YouTube. So this video will also go up on YouTube. And then we've also got, for those that are a bit more sort of education minded, we do also have a free online course on the Bolt website, or the Biosecurity Training Hub, and listed under Citrus Watch. There are a few other really interesting biosecurity courses on that. It's all free, and just gives you a bit more information, whether you're in the industry or just a home gardener as well. So I encourage everyone to check that out. So that's the end of the talk, and I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now. If you've got any questions, please sing out.
Thanks, Cynthia.
So
that's great.
Any questions, Emily?
No, that was all very clear. Thank you.
All right, so
I'll be ready for next time when you want bud sticks from Queensland.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end the recording there.